using gas additive. Now, this is before fuel injected cars were out, basically. Most all the cars then were carbureted cars. And I was lucky enough to had a acquaintance, kind of friend that her mother was getting older and wanted to sell her car. I guess she was going to stop driving or whatever. And she had an old Buick Electra 227, big car. And it was pretty clean. And uh, she just wanted $500 for it. They really wanted me to buy it. I didn't have $500 at the time. I was waitressing. I was working like three jobs, and staying in school. And so they said, well, you can just pay like $50 a month or something like that. And so that's what I did. And I never got title on the car, ever, actually, even when I paid it off. And so I had this car, and it was really handy instead of taking buses or taxis or riding bicycle or roller skating to work and stuff. And I wasn't going very far, just around Santa Monica, Marina Del Rey, Culver City, stuff like that. So anyway, and heck, I didn't even have a driver's license back then. So anyway, uh, I agreed to buy this car, signed a little piece of paper or something. I was under 18 for one. So anyway, and I was paying religiously, and whenever I had money, I would just pay more. And so I had this car, and in the commercials on TV, they had this additive. I can't remember what it was, STP or something, and it was a red bottle of stuff, and so it said every full tank, every fill up you get, put this in your gas tank, and it will keep your gas clean and your system clean and running great. And I'm like, wow. So I would go buy this stuff for $2 or $3, whatever it was. And I'd always put it in the gas tank, full tank religiously. And this thing was a horse. Had a huge gas tank. And so, I had the money, filled the tank back then. And so I did it religiously. Well, one day I was bartending down on 4th Street in Santa Monica, and you parked in a parking structure there because there was no parking on the street. And I went to try to start the car up. It didn't want to start. And I was like, wow, it seemed like there was battery. I had a couple people come look at the car and stuff, try to start it and see if it needed a jump or what. And it was a nice driving car, and so I just couldn't get it to start. So anyway, come to the conclusion, I said, have you done anything to it or whatever? And it's like, well, no, I mean, I never have to really do much to it. Uh, it was in real good shape. It was owned by an older lady, and I had already paid the car off, but still hadn't got papers on it. And so anyway, hello. So anyway, I had a guy that was a customer at the club, and he went to go look at the car and parking structure because it was right behind the club kind of thing. And so over by across the street from Henchie's, Fourth Street, and so anyway, he came up and he looked at the car and he'd asked me, "You put anything in it? You done any work to it?" And I said, "Yeah, I put this stuff in the gas every time I get a full tank. That stuff that's on TV and the commercials and everything." And I said, "I really take care of it. I had good tires on this thing, and Sears Die-Hard battery in it and all that. I think that's all I put in the car was a Sears Die-Hard battery. I don't think I did any other work to it because it just was in really good shape, and it was just an older car." So he says, "Well, how often did you use that stuff in the gas tank?" I said, "Every full tank, like it says, and it just runs great." And I was real good at checking fluids, keeping everything full, all that kind of stuff. And I kept the car washed and all that. So anyway, he says, well, tell you what I think. I said, you use that stuff so much that it's dried out everything in the carburetor. And he said, a carburetor is built with, like, little cardboard gasket things and some rubber and plastic, whatever, and for floats and this, that, and the other. And he said, you just dried it all up and ruined it. I'm like, no. Here you're thinking, man, I should be suing this company that tells you on the commercial, put it in every gas tank that when you fill up. And so the car was just garbage. I couldn't get it started. And I thought, surely, it's not a big thing to deal with. So, I had called the girl, uh, the daughter of the mother that owned the car originally. And I said, look, I've already paid the car off, and you guys can have it if you want it. It's, sitting in the parking structure over there in Santa Monica. And I said, I don't need it. And I got a brand new car off the showroom floor. I had a brand new Tornado. Beautiful car. And that's back when the Sevilles and the Tornadoes and all that stuff looked all alike. Front wheel drive car. This was a big new thing. Beautiful vehicle. It was 17.5 was purchase price on the car, and was paying on it. And so anyway, um, I had that to drive every day. Who cared? I didn't need the car. They were kind enough to sell me the car on payments. I was just a kid. I said, look, you can have it and the money. So anyway, I said, never again will I put that crap in every gas tank. And I learned that, mechanic in the can is not how you solve a problem. So I'm not a big fan of any of these liquid products to solve a problem when the car really needs to go to a mechanic. Um, in my case, it did more damage than good. And I don't know, it was like a STP or something. It was in a red bottle, red plastic bottle, and you poured it in every full tank. It was on commercials all the time. Use this product that's used in race cars and everything else, and put it in every full tank, you know, and that's what I did. And it destroyed the car. Those are chemicals that strip a lot of things, they do a lot of things, and you just can't find a mechanic in a can. I'm telling you. I was in the car business 19 years, and I learned a lot. And even to this day, stuff makes me wonder. I mean, they have stuff that you could pay $7,500 a bottle for, pour in your tank, and they claim it's going to Teflon coat every part in the engine, while it's running without taking it apart. I have trouble believing that too. Okay, why would that not clog stuff up and do other things? And how on earth do you Teflon plate an engine that's got oil, water, fuel running through it, and something's supposed to bond like that? I just don't know. There's all kinds of weird gimmicky things, and then there's things like uh, uh, that outboard cleaner. God, what is that called? That people used to put in the old cars before there were throttle body cars, fuel injected. And they would put this stuff in, and it was designed for outboards, for like on motorboats. Okay, and they pour it, a bottle of this stuff in the gas tank, and then run the car, and all the smoke comes out the back, and it cleans everything, and I had somebody do that to one of my old cars, and the thing, I drove it around for a week, and the flipping thing just smoked everywhere I went. People would go, your car's on fire. I'm like, no, it just does that. And it takes a while for all that junk to get out. But I'm just not a big fan. You can't use that stuff on cars with throttle bodies and stuff and have all these smog sensors on them and that, because it messes up those sensors that are on the exhaust, and then the car doesn't want to run. It's really hard on and you don't want to do it on a Cadillac. That's your worst mistake in the world. You got to be really careful what you put through a Cadillac engine. They get really mad. And so anyway, I'm just not a big fan of weird chemicals. It sounds. Yeah, so I'm not a big fan. Now, the only thing I do because I've researched it so much, is fuel injector cleaner. That is really necessary for these newer cars that are injected. And you really need to keep it in the car. I had a boyfriend that had a brand new Caprice. He never put any fluids in it ever. Never. He went, to the dealer and had it serviced then, you know. And I'm like, why you don't check your oil? Why don't check your water? I mean, you know, and it started running really bad, like the transmission was failing. It was just not shifting right. And he was complaining about it. I drove it around the block and I said, well, it's not driving good at all. I said, it's feeling like the transmission is acting up. And it's a brand new car. I said, how often do you put injector cleaner in it? He said, never. I let the dealer do all that stuff. I said, well, the dealer can't do all that stuff all year round. I mean, that's something you have to do. And I usually do it about every 3 or 4 months if I have a fuel injected car. And I don't even use the whole bottle because I'm scared of it ever since I destroyed that other car. I just don't like additives. And you better use it in a full tank. Don't try to do it on a quarter tank or any of that. Just get a full tank and put some in there and be done with it. Don't take that risk of short sheeting it because you're going to have too much chemical. So anyway, I told him, I said, well, cheapest parts first. That's what they say. So he says, well, whatever you want to do, see what you can do. So I went and got some fuel injector cleaner, put it in the car, drove it around town for a little bit, brought it back. It was a lot better. And then every day it got better when he drove it to work. And then after about 7 days, it was great. And so, hello. I see you guys on the chat. And so anyway, that I learned something right there. I'm like, man, that injector cleaner, if you don't use it, then other stuff starts acting up and it will act like a transmission is bad. And so for a couple bucks, it's worth it to buy some injector cleaner and use it, every 3 or 4 months on a full tank. And that will really keep you from having weird problems that you think are going to cost in the thousands. It's really, really important to know how to check your own oil and your fluids, maintain your car, open the bonnet once a week, see if anything's leaking. You hear a weird noise, go to a mechanic. It's super important. I'm used to always having more than one car. That way, if one breaks, I just don't use it. I turn key on the other one. When I get a chance, I get to the other one and see what's wrong with it. But a lot of people don't have that privilege. And so, yeah. So I'm not a big fan on mechanic in the can. Trust me. Trans-X, that was a big thing. If you blew a transmission, yeah, you bought this can of stuff that was $15. You pour it in the tranny, and it's supposed to make the tranny work when the tranny's destroyed. And that is just a last chance effort. People will use that to sell a car just to make it drivable. And then the person that buys it in very short order, they find out that the transmission is garbage when that stuff wears out. All these stop leak things. I bought a car that somebody used stop leaking it incessantly. And I didn't know what was going on. The car kept overheating. Took to the mechanic. He starts taking hoses off. And they have this spongy red stuff in there. And I'm like, what is that? How does the water get through there? And he's like, that's stop leak. And I'm like, huh? And I said, man, I will never use stop leak, And so they do damage, It's just like that flat tire fix, There's a lot of shops that go, we aren't working on your tire because you put Fix-A-Flat in it. Or it eats our tools up, or whatever. It's bad stuff. When you have to take that tire off, it is sticky, gooey good. They don't have time to wash all that stuff off. It gets all over their tools, all over them, and it's a pain in the butt to try to change a tire with all that goog in there. And so if you can not use that and try to get that tire fixed or replaced, you're better off. And sometimes you just can't. Yeah, I've used Fix-A-Flat. I drove on a tire on my Fiat, my convertible Fiat, for a year and kept putting Fix-A-Flat in it just to keep it alive because I couldn't afford, $20 for a used tire, but I had to drive every day. I was working in Santa Monica and working in the Valley, I was driving all over the place, and it was like a nonstop thing. I used to always work 2 and 3 jobs at a time, and one was way over here and one was way over there. And so I had to keep going, couldn't stop. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm not a great fan of chemicals in the bottle. There are only like a couple that I really like, and that's like Marble Mystery Oil and a Lucas product that is made that's pretty decent. It looks like yellow honey, and it's a good little additive for fuel injection. But I'm not a fan of that other stuff. I had a guy come in the other day, and he's like, "Well, my light's coming on, and my car's running kind of bad, so I think the gas is dirty. Tell me what I can buy to clean the gas." And I said, "Well, I mean, it sounds more like you need to just empty the tank. And so that means you have to pull the fuel tank out of the vehicle. Have you thought about that?" Oh, I just need something to clean the tank. You tell me what to buy." And it's like, I don't know. I don't use products like that. So I couldn't tell you, and I wouldn't want to suggest something because if it breaks your car, you're going to come back and you're going to be mad at me because your car broke. Because I told you to buy this in the can. I say just pick what you want. Well, I can't believe you won't tell me. I'm going to look it up on AI, whatever that is. And he's like looking it up on AI, and he's like, and he keeps picking on me. You won't tell me. You won't tell me. I said, I don't use anything like that. I'm just, I'd rather fix it than pour something in it. And what you're describing is, you know, much more than injector cleaner. Um, so I don't know. And I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a licensed, educated mechanic. I'm a hobbyist. I turn wrenches on my own cars. I don't work on other people's cars. I even have a dealer level scanner for my car. You know, um, but I am not that. But trust me, mechanic in the can is not always the way to solve it. If it was, we'd all be buying that, and we wouldn't have mechanics and shops. We would just buy some junk in a bottle and pour it in and problem solve, right? But it's not. It's just like doctors. If you're sick and whatever, you go to a doctor. You don't just keep taking stuff you buy at the pharmacy and trying to figure out what's wrong with you. Sometimes you kind of need to go to the doctor, get blood tests, PP tests, whatever, and get somebody that's educated in the medical field to tell you what's wrong. And sometimes you need a second or third opinion. I think people buy that because mechanics are expensive. Well, sure. I mean, I was a kid. I learned how to turn wrench on my cars because it saved me a lot of money. I asked questions. I read books. I bought manuals to keep with my cars to work on that very car. They sold Haynes manuals for years. Now they've stopped making them, and they're worth a mint. You know, I got Haynes manuals for all kinds of cars, in storage. I'm gonna sell a lot of them off because I don't need them, and somebody could really use them, especially when they're not made anymore. But it's just if you can't afford to support your vehicle, then buy a bicycle or a skateboard or roller skates. That's how you solve the problem. Or take a Uber, take the bus if you have buses. But how do you solve the problem? I have a friend of mine, Juvie, and I would come down to Florida and work. He worked at the Frog, and this is a gentleman's club. And he was like 15. I'm not saying it was legal, but he was 15 and he was working the door. And all the family and the Filipinos worked this club. And he was just the friendliest, nicest guy. And I've known him all his life. He's way older now, and all grown up. And he's like my baby brother. You know, I just love him. And so, anyway, I came down one time from Memphis, and he's like, "There's my new car. Show me this cute little sports car, blue, racy, really cute." And I was so proud for him. Now he didn't have to drive, not even a quarter mile. He drove over the bridge, and he had a little apartment right over the Brooks Bridge, and from the club, you could even walk from the club to that, easy. But he had this little car, and so all paid for. He was paying the insurance, paid the registration. He was so proud. Cute little car, and pretty blue, the whole thing. Well, then years later, I found out, well, he doesn't have a car. He walks, and I'm like, wow, what a bummer. Maybe he lost his license from drunk driving or something. No, you know what it turned out? He didn't want a car. And it's like, how could you not want a car? I mean, a car is like your freedom, man. Especially going to a big city or if you want to travel or something. And it's like he didn't want it. And the reason he didn't want it, he said, the reason he didn't want it was because he said it's too much money. The car insurance, repairs, all that stuff, forget it, I'm done. So he got rid of it. He walked instead. Anyway, I got to get going. I love you guys. Thanks for hanging out. And I'll catch you in the next one.